Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are on the Bottom Line Show this Saturday morning. It's a great morning. The sun is sort of out, and we had rain here in Texas that like kind of did some damage to people. They were like flooding. What was it like out there in Kansas City, Bria?
I think it rained last night. My allergies are doing a number, so I'm assuming that's what happened.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy with the way the weather's been up and down, but finally we have some like decent weather here in Texas. Um, and I'm sporting my Cleveland Browns shirt today. Yes, I am. They are playing the Bears this weekend in the preseason, one of the final tune-up games for the starters. But yeah, just so much going on this week in the news that it's just weird that it's like when one thing happens, there's a counter to that same issue. One of the biggest issues this week that we saw was that. Well, I'm just gonna go through the list of things here. I guess you can go when you want to go through the list, and then we can give some quick comments right quick.
Yeah, so let's see here. We got today, we have a lot to talk about. Classified White House documents. We know that Trump took documents from the White House, and we got some news about that. Also, the White House released a list of PPP loan recipients um, on the Hill, and these were people who were very vocal about disagreeing with Biden's decision to forgive student loans for those who make under $125,000 per year.
Okay.
We have teachers on strike in Ohio. An Oklahoma teacher resigns for, she was reprimanded by her high school for providing a QR list of banned books to her students, and she resigned due to that backlash. Um, Bullied kid pulled out a gun on her school bus, which is really scary. I think you said she was 12 years old. And then, of
Yeah.
course, we're going to talk about that ridiculous image of those World Series Little League team players putting cotton in their teammates' hair. So we're gonna talk about that. A lot. That's a loaded list today. We've got a lot to talk to. We have a lot to talk about.
A lot of this, do you think a lot of these things could be some learning examples throughout this whole process? Every topic we had, there was like a learning example, a
Yeah.
teaching moment in each one of these. That could have been a teaching moment.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and start off with these not the leaked documents, but the ones from the what was it, the White House documents? I think you had
Yeah. Um,
classified documents.
mhm.
Yeah. Do we have a video of that?
I don't think
Talk some
we.
more about those documents.
I don't think we do, but I
Oh,
think.
we had a
Mhm.
no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say. I don't think we have a video of it. Just some updates. Obviously, it's being investigated. Rudy Giuliani got on. Why does he do this? He gets on Fox and he's talking about Trump took the documents in order to protect them from the White House. And it's just like, this whole administration, it was always some sort of crazy explanation when something went terribly wrong, or there was just something
Right.
super crazy unethical that was going down. There's always some crazy justification for it. And I just think you know, it's not really funny anymore. It's kind of scary because it's not like they're not getting away with it. I am happy to see that, the FBI is taking this serious, but it's just kind of like, how do we even get here? Why is this even a thing, you know?
Yeah. And what's really crazy about all this is that
Mhm.
the FBI, I mean, the National Archives people had already went to his house after he came out of office. So they had an idea. They took some of the boxes. They didn't get them all. The,
But
the thing
they
about
just,
it,
mhm.
they didn't get them all the first time. So they had to come back. That's why they came back to get some more.
Yeah.
But it's why would now did you realize that every piece of paper has to be turned in? Like every
Mhm.
if the president writes on the piece of paper, "Hey, bring me 5 donuts," that has to be turned in to the National Archives.
Yeah.
Something that simple. In a press conference, he's writing on a scribble note to his staffer, "Bring me some tissue. My nose is running."
Mm-hmm.
That has to be turned in to every piece of document that you memo, everything. So for something to be labeled as classified,
Yeah.
what gets me is that they allowed those when he took those things over there and they went to go find certain boxes back. Why didn't they just grab everything then? I
Mm-hmm.
think, in my opinion, they were allowing certain documents to stay as they build up this other case on the insurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in my opinion, because there are some things in that those documents I'm sure has nothing to do with the insurrection, of course, but it's highly sensitive information.
Mm-hmm.
And to have this back and forth, and not only that, but for you to where we are in this country, it's allowing people who support him to say it's okay, he had a right, or it's okay,
Well,
like you said, Giuliano said he was protecting them. That's another narrative that's being pushed out saying that because he lost the election, he had to protect documents from Biden and his staff.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's you're the president. When he came out of office, when President Trump went in the office, Obama gave him the rundown and went over all the details of classified information. That's
Mm-hmm.
what presidents do when they hand over to the next. But Trump is so stubborn and so what's the word I want to use? Selfish and arrogant and
Mm-hmm.
controlling that he feels that no one can do the job but him. That's the perception that he has. He truly believes that no one can do it but me.
Mm-hmm.
And this
Well,
is
he wasn't.
another example.
Sorry,
Go
Rudy
ahead.
Giuliani wasn't on Fox, and he was not speaking facts either. But he was on Newsmax. I
Yeah.
think it's streamed or something. But he said that Trump was keeping them safe at Mar-a-Lago. So I mean,
He was keeping what?
keeping the documents safe at
Oh
Mar-a-Lago.
yeah.
But it shows
Yeah.
the FBI found 184 unique documents, 25 of which were marked top secret,
Yeah.
92 of which were marked secret, and 67 of which were marked confidential, the lowest level of national security classification. So, it said that the documents were intertwined. They were not properly, they weren't properly classified, like at his home, like they were just
Yeah.
all over the place, basically. And let's see. It looks like so. This has never happened before. Obviously, no other
No.
president has ever taken documents from the White House.
Well, I take
It's
it back. I take it back. I take it back. It was done during Nixon's administration. He tried to get those tapes, those recordings. So
right. But what does
this,
that tell you?
this, yeah, I'm saying this was put in this law that you have now about with the National Archives. That was done because of Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
That was put into place in case of a president who might have been corrupt, tried to take information to hide his corrupt behavior.
Right.
That's what this is about. So that's why the laws are put. I'm not saying that's why Trump did it to hide corrupt
Why else
behavior.
would he have done it? I mean, my thing is, why else would
It's
he have?
who did he give the behavior, the corruptness to? Who did he give the information to?
The problem I have with this is that so when okay, let's pull up the
What's that?
differences because I'm glad you brought up Nixon.
Mhm.
Oh man. Sorry, I'm really my allergies are really going crazy here. We all recognize that Nixon was wrong. There was never
Right.
like there was not a debate. I mean, I'm sure there were debates about it, but there wasn't like this was clearly corruption at the highest level. We
Right.
know
Right.
this. It wasn't like
Yeah.
argued. We learned it in history class. You learned it. Like we know that it was wrong. Trump does.
Exactly.
I think honestly, what I think Trump did was worse because it was his entire presidency. He was impeached
Yeah.
twice. He we watched him let a journalist that was not a United States citizen, but literally working for the United States at the time. We watched Trump let him be murdered, basically his murder go uninvestigated or anything like that. Like we saw that happen. We saw, I mean, we saw so many things under his administration. Then we saw January 6th. We saw him deny that he lost the presidency and had this whole thing all over pride and ego that, you know, the election was stolen. And then this happened. So this is what the reason why I say it's worse is because with Trump, it was a pattern, a series of, you know, just his whole administration was corrupt from day one. From his campaign. I mean, like we saw during his campaign, it was just, you know, grab him by the, you know, and you know, I can shoot someone in Times Square. And it's just from the very beginning, we saw that this is not surprising because we saw this. Nixon was elected, he was loved, he was, you know what I mean? And then, you know, so do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just
I get it.
I mean, he wasn't loved, but you know what I'm saying? It was a normal, I feel like it was a normal situation. He was elected into presidency and then
well, there's a video there you'll see. There's a video there.
And had to resign, but like,
there's a video that shows who's in danger by these documents. If you could play that video there.
Okay.
Ken Dilanian, let's talk the contents of some of this affidavit, which I find fascinating. The classification of some of the documents that were contained, that they believe were contained, being stored at Mar-a-Lago, the high classification of them, really, and who they could feasibly compromise.
Yeah, Yasmin, that's what really jumped out to me as somebody who's covered the intelligence community for a lot of years. These kinds of markings are not seen on documents that are found outside of special facilities designed to house classified documents, period, end of story. I mean, human control system was one of the markings they found on documents. That connotes basically a CIA field report, a report by a CIA officer, perhaps maybe a Defense Intelligence Agency officer, but normally CIA, about his or her debriefing of a confidential source overseas, a spy. Now, normally those reports don't leave the CIA, but in some cases, I'm told, when senior intelligence officials are briefing the president on a significant intelligence development, they may want to show the president exactly where it came from and the direct source information. This is raw intelligence. This is not finished intelligence written up by analysts. This is right from the collector. And so if that's what happened here and he took it home with him and it ended up in Mar-a-Lago, that is just absolutely stunning.
Ken, let me step in for one moment, because I do want folks to understand what you're talking about, right? This human control system, or HCS as it's classified, it's designed to protect intelligence information derived from clandestine human sources, commonly referred to, and this is, by the way, I'm reading from the affidavit here, as human intelligence. The HCS control system protects human intelligence derived information relating to human intelligence activities, capabilities, techniques, processes, and procedures. I mean, you don't have to watch Homeland to know how incredibly important something like this is and how important it is to protect these sources overseas, their safety, especially considering the position they're putting themselves in.
Right. So in English, what you just read there means it's generally a report from a CIA officer about his or her conversations and debriefings of a spy. Super sensitive stuff. It may not have the name of the source, but it may have identifying information. Not the kind of stuff that ever gets outside a vault, essentially. And the other really alarming designation is SI, for signals intelligence, which means NSA, it could mean National Security Agency, intercepts of foreign leader communications or other kinds of phone calls, emails. The NSA is vacuuming stuff up all over the world. It's super highly classified. It makes up, in many cases, 3/4 of the president's daily intelligence brief, because they're getting a lot of really good stuff. But that is very, very secret stuff. And if the idea that documents with those markings were in Mar-a-Lago, again, just alarming. And there's, other markings, no foreign, means intelligence so sensitive it can't be shared with any foreign nationals, including our closest allies, the Brits and the Australians. And ORCON, meaning originator control, which is just means that the agency that has the document decides who sees it. So it's just another evidence of how highly classified these documents are. And the last thing I want to say, Yasmin, is in the memorandum of law, separate from the affidavit that they filed, we also learned something important, which is that the Justice Department said that there are a significant number of civilian witnesses whose identities they need to protect. So the idea that there was one informant, one confidential human source that gave them the roadmap to this whole thing is belied by this language. There are a lot of people talking to the FBI.
Jeez.
Well, we want to thank MSNBC for that report, for that information. You gotta give them some credit because we're using their footage there. But what were you gonna? Well, go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay, I'll backtrack and say this. Actually, now thinking about this in retrospect, because I'm gonna get chewed for saying what he did was worse than Nixon. So obviously, what I meant was, it seemed like Trump's whole presidency was riddled with scandals, like left and right since day one. Whereas Watergate was the biggest. That's the biggest thing we remember from Nixon's presidency as far as corruption goes. So, but it was it was bad, y'all. It was bad. Okay, it was really bad. If you don't know, go look it up. It was bad. It was worse. I think what he did was. I think Trump does things out of stupidity. I think with Nixon, it was very calculated. So let's just
it was. He started the war. He started the war on drugs back in the 70s. So everything was calculated that Nixon did. Yeah, but with those documents, this is the part that bothers me about all that. How the country is divided over what was considered right and what was considered wrong. That's what baffles me. Not that I'm not saying it baffles me, but it's like clear cut. Like Leanne said earlier, Leanne made a comment that I saw earlier today, which is so. What is it? Hold on.
Leanne, I agree. Leanne, I agree. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, she was just saying that eventually the truth will come out. People will find out the truth. But her latest comment was, it's right there too.
I had to backtrack because I'm gonna get chewed for that. Okay. I just, I wanted to clarify what I meant was just like one presidency is riddled with scandal and one was a really big bad scandal. But you're absolutely right. I think they're both equally terrible, to be honest. All I was saying was, it was a different time. If Trump was running for president during Nixon's time, he would definitely not be, elected. We've entered into some crazy times where someone like Trump can become president. And our country is still kind of trying to bounce back from that madness. It's just, you got a whole group of people now that have been emboldened by such, it's kind of like an evil thing now. I just feel like it's not slowing down. Even though he's not president, it's not slowing down. Like it's like a cancer. So I just
I have a question. What are the people? No, go ahead, finish. You said you felt something.
No, I'm done.
What is your generation looking at toward elections? Like the people you talk to in your peer group about, politics and like all this stuff that's going down. What are their viewpoints going forward in regards to politics?
The people I talk to on a normal, I think that we are all in the same mind space of like just kind of like disarray. Like we really, I don't know what's going on. What are we gonna do as far as I don't think anybody really wants Biden to be president again. That's what I'm getting out of this. Yeah. And then I'm also getting, what other? I think it's in the same place that we were when it was an option between Trump and we had to elect, make a choice between Trump and Biden. It's like, we don't want either of them, but one of the lesser of, and I think honestly, when I talk to my peers, that's what I get. Like, it's just kind of a confusion there. It's kind of a, like, we don't know which way is up. And honestly, I'm not really that into politics outside of that. Like I keep up with the news outside of this Saturday morning. Like I'm really not that much into politics. So I don't really know what's going on with candidates right now. But I will say that's my fault. I need to really get back on this. But I will say of the people I talk to, it's the same of it just looks the future looks very dim, looks very bleak. It doesn't there was an excitement about, I know this is going to sound, here we go. There was an excitement about Obama, there was an excitement about that. There was like we see a future, we see like a lot of changes happening. Like, even if we see representation, we see, it was just a bright time. Like it was kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like people thought they could do anything, be anything. Kids thought they could be anything. And I think
Yeah.
that for a lot of my childhood, Obama was president. Like, I mean, I was in like the 7th or 8th grade, until 2016. So
Yeah.
that was it was very hopeful for me up until that point. So this is, my adult life. In my adult life, that will be it. Like, I voted for, Hillary Clinton. That was the first time I ever voted. And then, then Biden. Like, this has been my adult life in this Trump
Yeah.
era. So it's for me, it's kind of, you know what I mean?
No, I definitely get it. I get it. I just wanted to hear that from your perspective, because it sounds like you had all this hope as you grew up, and then when you became an adult, you was like, "Wow, where's the world turning to? My hope is not like it was as a youth growing up,
I'm
as
not
a
lie,
teenager growing up."
at one point, I'm just like, adulting is so ghetto. It is ghetto. I don't like being an adult. I want to go back to the Obama era. Like, this is just, I don't recommend 0 stars.
Yeah.
So, now but it's time to grow up. It's time for us to start making some hard decisions. And I think that's what it was when we elected Biden. It was not a hard decision, but it was no other decision.
Yeah.
So now it's
So
like,
you think that though? So you're looking at your generation and those that's coming up right behind you are the ones that significantly have to make the change. So in order for that change to be made, your generation really has to do research and preparing to move the country forward. And those are the things I always talk about: learning, teaching. It's up to each responsible adult to do their own due diligence, to be prepared for elections, to be, even if you don't go into politics, be prepared to make choices as a citizen about politics.
yeah,
And we can't lean on what your peers did, because as we see now, kids are actually just following in your generation of some of the people, and my generation are just following into the patterns of their parents because of tradition, not
yeah.
because it was a wise decision.
I cannot. I think we're all waiting for the time where an independent candidate will be elected as president. And my thing is, why hasn't that happened before? I mean, we know why it has happened before. Party lines are party lines, but I feel like now is the time. I think, when we look at the Republican, there was a time where a Democrat will vote Republican or a Republican will vote Democrat because
Yeah,
of the
I've
policy,
done it.
because of what the candidate is promising to do, not because
Yeah.
of loyalties or, you know what I mean? But now that's not where we are. Now we can't, a Democrat cannot vote for a Republican because even if we did have a Republican candidate that promised to do things that would benefit both sides, how can you trust it? You know what I mean? How can we trust
Yeah.
actually to happen? Because we've seen our politicians get elected and then not follow through on their promises, which is nothing new.
No, exactly.
But I think now the time is for an independent candidate to be elected as president whose goal is to unite the country and satisfy both sides of the party line. Like, that's what I feel is
Agree.
necessary at this time, because both sides are so at odds, they're so at war that nobody wins.
Yeah.
And a lot
I
of
agree. I totally agree.
a lot of it has a lot to do with just basic human rights, but I guess it's policy. But I mean, we're looking at abortion rights, we're looking at education, we're looking at just discrimination on just like a just blatant discrimination is what we're looking at. I mean,
No, I
nobody.
totally agree. No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. And as we move forward, still talking about these politicians, we just had this week, we had the um, Biden announced student loan forgiveness of the $10,000, and for some students up to 20,000. I think it's $25,000, 20 or 25. I think it's $20,000.
Mhm.
And then immediately during that process leading up to that, you had a lot of Republicans speaking against having these loans forgiven. But then we come to find out that these same very people who were complaining about how we're going to pay for this had their PPP loans forgiven. We're talking millions and millions of dollars. Now, this is the thing that gets me though. So I'm watching YouTube videos and Twitter videos, and I hear names like Khloe Kardashian, Kim Kardashian. I hear Kanye West. I hear all these celebrities. But then you're telling me, which I already knew too, but you were telling me you had a list. You found a video that showed the names of the politicians who got these loans. Now,
Millions of dollars. And it's not about the
millions of
loans.
dollars.
It's about the loans, but it's really more for me about the forgiveness aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're a billionaire, or you're a millionaire, couple millionaire, 100 millionaire, whatever, why are you having your PPP loans forgiven?
Right.
Why
You
are you
should
not
have
paying
them to
it
do that.
back? Why am I paying for your PPP loans? Why am
And
I
these loans were for small struggling businesses.
paying? How
They
many
weren't
struggling
small
businesses
struggling businesses.
actually got PPP? Here's the worst part about it, though, is you see a lot of the small businesses that have the PP that have gone out and sought out the PPP loans. Some of them were not given the loan, and some of them got the loan but didn't get the forgiveness. Some of them just did the paperwork incorrectly, and now they're literally facing jail time for PPP loan fraud. And
Yeah.
you can best believe that these politicians that took part in this were also doing fraud. It
Yeah,
was an
exactly.
opportunity to get extra money in their pockets, and they took it. It was literally free
Yeah.
money for them. And you have these same politicians that have taken part in this now condemning the president for offering student loan forgiveness for students who
Yeah.
make less
Hey,
than $125,000 per year, who are clearly struggling, who can't pay back these hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. And a lot of
mhm.
times, the students that take out these large debts, these were actually victims of predatory loan policies, predatory loaners, or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say?
Exactly.
Lenders, predatory lenders.
Yeah.
And they get these kids as soon as they get into college, and they prey on them. And then these kids are stuck with these student loan debts and a job that doesn't offer an income to pay the loans back. And
Right.
it's crazy.
I'm
Oh,
gonna bring in Darren here. This is the coolest man on the internet. I love that brim he's wearing. The
hi,
coolest man
Darren.
on the internet, Darren Harvey. He's on the road today.
Hey,
You see the elbows. You see the elbows and the side of the head, and you see the
Hi.
nose hairs and all that.
I'm trying to get my camera angle right. I can't do it.
Yeah.
How you doing, Darren?
So, how you doing today?
Hey, is that better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pay attention to the road, man.
Peace.
Peace. Yeah. Be careful now. But we were talking about the student loan forgiveness and the politicians and people who had their loans forgiven. Those are some of the same politicians who criticized the whole loan forgiveness for students in college. What's your opinion about that?
Well, I'm glad that they did some forgiveness of the loans. It's not quite as much as people had hoped. I think it's significant, though. I think it's a stepping stone into the right place. I have several thoughts of it. First of all, I think you might have already talked about this. I think it's right because all you have to do is look at, ask your mom or dad how much they had to pay for college, which was like $2,000 a year. I think my parents went to Kent State here in Ohio. I went to a private college, and I think it was like $10,000 to $13,000 a year. Now, that same college is like 3 times as much. And
Yeah.
my second daughter's looking to go to that same school. Maybe it's like 3 times as much. So
Yeah.
do the math. Have incomes increased threefold since we were in college, Lamar? No.
No, it hasn't.
So higher education is way overpriced. Many people have to take out loans in order to go to college. Many of the jobs nowadays are asking for college. They're asking for more and more school, more and more training. So what choice do you have? It's like it's almost like you have to go to college. You have to do something after high school anymore. So I agree with it. I think we could do more with making community college free, at least free tuition. I think that would be fantastic because in this labor market, so many jobs require at least an associate's degree.
And even those jobs are very low paying jobs. It's ridiculous.
The people that are complaining about, like, well, I paid my loans, these people should pay their loans.
You know what I heard a great example of that, Darren? A great example I heard of that. The example you just gave, how you said some people paid their loans and they feel that other people should pay their loans. That's like saying, well, you know, I had to go through paying for all this medication, everything for cancer research, and my mom or my family member died. So let's stop doing the research because I went that route already. And it's not fair. You would think it's not fair, but what's wrong with making progress to make it better for the next person? That's what we should be doing.
Definitely.
We should want each generation to be better than the last generation.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of analogies you can make. It's like, well, why are you going to give somebody a tax break now? And it's like, well, I had to pay higher taxes 10 years ago. It doesn't mean that's another example. It's like, what about all these companies that paid and people that paid higher taxes before? Now they're getting a tax break. How is that fair? It's the same argument. What is right is right. We can't change the past, but we can make it easier on the younger generation. And I agree 1,000% about what you said. We want to make things better for future generations. We don't. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about this? I just heard a good, maybe a good solution to some student loans. You know how you have like deductibles when you own a house for your income, your yearly income tax? What if we put student loans in that same category, where you can have a deductible off your yearly income tax every year because of student loans?
Maybe that would probably be fair, except that I'm in favor of I might be of a minority opinion about this as far as being on the left, but I would like to make taxes simpler. So the fact that you do things just because you can get a deduction, like you donate to charity, and then you can deduct that. Well, is it really charity? So I would rather make taxes simpler. You have all these deductions and child credits, business expenses that you can deduct. I would rather just make taxes simpler, so it's all on one page, and anyone with any education level, it doesn't have to take several days to do your own taxes. I know nowadays you have computer programs that do your taxes. Well, that's existed for years, but still, you know what I'm saying? I would rather have less deductions, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the suggestions I've heard from bankers. I heard that from bankers and some tax people who said that that will be something that will probably make it easier on that person paying that student loan. And that's why I brought it up, to get your opinion on. I just heard that this week, and it's something that it will go deeper.
I want to say one more thing. A lot of people on the right talk about how it's unfair and that people should pay what they're obligated to pay. What about all these businesses that get tax credit and got their they could write off tons and tons of deductions and taxes every year? No, they never complain about that. What about their obligation?
Right. I mean, that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the same people who complain. Yeah, the PPP loan. The same people complained about the student loan were those people who got that, what do you call it, that handout money. You know, they're getting handouts.
What Bria was saying is absolutely true. A lot of these people were victims of predatory lending. The student loan industry is an industry, giving people student loans. People companies make tons of money off of students going to school.
I mean, the list goes on from student loans to credit cards. I mean, when these kids go to college, you know, they literally they put flyers on the doors of your dorm. Come onto this pizza party, get free pizza, and sign an application for a credit card. Boom.
Yeah.
You got a credit card. You got, you know, and obviously they don't really go down the ways of telling these students how to not, you know, overspend on this credit card or don't just pay your minimum payment. Then you have, you know, these student loans that they're offering these massive amounts of money, and to a freshman or a sophomore in college, this is how you pay your tuition.
Not prepared. They're not prepared.
And then you get out of school. You get out of school and you want to get a job that will, you know, pay you enough to pay back these student loans. But the reality is, a lot of these jobs want you to have more education. So you got to go back to school. You got to get some more loans. It's really a cycle that it's a vicious cycle. If you're not in a career that, you know for sure it's going to give you a return, you're gonna get screwed.
Yeah, major. What were you gonna say, Darren?
You started to break up there, but I was going to say how we need to better educate students about financial literacy, even in college, because it makes it seem like there's no students don't feel that pain and that burden until they graduate, and they're like, oh my God, I got $100,000 of debt.
Yeah.
I'm not making as much money as I thought I would. This isn't going as far as I thought it would, because they have this huge student loan debt. So we need to make college worth it again. You know, in a lot of cases, college isn't worth it because it's so expensive because of the loans that you have to take out in order to get an education.
Yeah, Bria had a video. Do you have a video for the student loans?
I do have a video. I want to make this last point. I've made this point in the past where it's really important that for our children, we look at our resources that we already have before sending them off to college. For example, I'm going to college through the union. My mom, she has a job where she works in a union. She works for the county, and there's a union. Through her union, we get free college. And I know that it's not everyone's goal to go to, some people have these high expectations or these high goals of going to a college like an Ivy League college or an HBCU like Howard or, and totally understandable. But for students who are, wanting to go to college and they're not wanting to, rack up a whole lot of student debt, look into your options for free college. Look into your options for scholarships. Look into all these options, because especially if you're a woman and you're a woman of color, you have scholarship options. If you're a mother and you're a mother and you're a woman of color, you have tons of scholarship options. If you are if you're a woman, period, you got options. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of scholarship opportunities out there. You just have to look. You just have to do the research. That's something that I would highly recommend to avoid racking up so much debt. I'm only speaking as a woman. I'm a woman, so that's why I don't really know what else is out there.
Right.
But, I'm speaking from my perspective. It's something I'll look into. So the videos that I do have, first off, I have a list of all of the politicians who spoke out against student loan forgiveness and their PPP loan forgiveness. I have a list.
Yes. Go ahead and show that. Look
at this list. Woo! $4.3 million. Lord. $3.1 million. These loans were forgiven, guys. Forgiven.
Yeah.
Money right there.
And you had a video of someone talking about this, right?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys.
And Darren, I had your mic muted because of the noise in the background, but if you're going to talk, just put your finger up, let me know, and I'll mute your mic.
Did it work?
Yes.
Okay, watch this. I'm going to mute mine too.
Yeah, go ahead and
thousands and in some cases millions of dollars that the government forgave. They had the government forgive their own debt for millions of dollars, and they're out
Make
here
your screen large.
about
Make your
forgiving
screen large.
$10,000 of student loan debts for people making less than $125,000. So in the first tweet, the White House focuses on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they quote tweet a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene going on a radical right extremist network saying, oh, it's just completely unfair for our government to say, okay, your debt's completely forgiven. Play this clip.
But for our government just to say, okay, well, your debt is completely forgiven. Obviously, they have an agenda for that. They need votes in November. So the timing is a pure coincidence there as well. But it's completely unfair. And taxpayers all over the country, taxpayers that never took out a student loan, taxpayers that pay their bills and maybe even never went to college or just hardworking people, they shouldn't have to pay off the great big student loan debt for some college student that piled up massive debt going to some Ivy League school. That's not fair.
Yeah, the White House points out Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $183,504 in PPP loans forgiven. Next, the White House talks about radical Republican Congressman Vern Buchanan. And this is what Vern Buchanan's tweet was. As a blue-collar kid who worked his way through college, I know firsthand the sacrifices people make to receive an education. Biden's reckless unilateral student loan giveaway is unfair to the 87% of Americans. Now, this is what the White House says. Congressman Vern Buchanan had over $2.3 million in PPP loans forgiven. Next, the White House focuses on a tweet by Markwayne Mullin. Markwayne Mullin goes, we do not need farmers and ranchers and small business owners and teachers in Oklahoma paying the debts of Ivy League lawyers and doctors across the United States, which is a false representation of what Biden's plan is. But the White House points out Congressman Markwayne Mullin had over $1.4 million in PPP loans forgiven. Really? Really? Next, they focus on Kevin Harn. Kevin Harn tweets, to recap, in the last 2 weeks, the party of the people has supercharged the IRS to go after working class Americans. That's been totally false and totally debunked, but that's their big boogeyman that they try to do so that these billionaires don't get audited and they could become tax cheats, but that's what they say. And then he goes, it's entirely and totally unfair. Well, guess what? The White House points out. Congressman Kevin Harn had over $1 million in PPP loans forgiven. And
So yeah, that's the gist of the. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, unmute yourself.
Yeah, go ahead and unshare that. Yeah,
that's pretty much the gist of it. I think that's just super crazy. I think that's wild that you have these people speaking out against it this isn't like this was years ago. This was just last year. This is this year. These loans are being forgiven and it's millions of dollars, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
How do you justify being against student loans being forgiven and you have millions of dollars that's just been forgiven by the same government? The same
that's the hypocrisy. See, that's what we deal with politics. I mean, that's what we deal with. You grab somebody's attention or you grab a base of people as your, to support you, but they're not investigating you, the individual also, or what you're doing. They're just going by what you said. Those are the people who don't do their research, their due diligence. And that's what's messing it up. So we have also, when it comes down to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I will say this. The good thing about the Trump administration, I think we've seen now, is this kind of tweet wouldn't have been possible without that. The fiasco of the Trump administration, it would be very cut and dry. This wouldn't have ever been tweeted by the White House if the whole Trump administration madness hadn't happened. The government's more relaxed. They're more, okay with not being so rigid and formal. That's an upside because we're now seeing the real. We're seeing the real. You know what I mean? This is something we would have had to look up otherwise. No, the White House is delivering these receipts right there on Twitter. It's petty. It's I know Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. No, the White House is like, I'm gonna get down with you. I'm gonna go down with you, and we're gonna talk about this. And I feel like that's cool. I'm cool with that, especially when you have so many Americans who are suffering from student loan debt. It's literally like, it's bad for your health. Okay. You can't even pay for things that you need because you're paying these student loan debts. You know what I'm saying? Or your credit's going into the trash. So then you can't get anything you need. You can't even buy a house because you got these student loan debts. It's absolutely insane. And the jump start, it's I know that it's not, like Darren said, it's not as much as we would have hoped for. Like, honestly, I think all student loan debt should be wiped out, but that's just me. I think that we're going to see, this is actually going to be really good for a lot of people. The one thing I will say, because I was watching videos about this earlier this week, me and George were looking at some videos, and I will say that, okay, you get in this 10,000, 20,000, forgiven. That is not a reason to take your foot off the gas. Pay off those rest of them student loans. You know what I mean? I think it's outrageous that you've had this 3-year, some of us have had this, 3-year gap of not having to pay student loans, and no one's paid their student loans. Pay their student loans off.
Can you imagine if that was done when the economy was good? When we had a good economy, when things were going good, to say, this is opportunity to release some of that debt. We're releasing the debt off of people. Some of the people still don't even have adequate jobs. The jobs aren't, then you say, well, jobs are plentiful. That's like a false reality to a sense. The jobs are out there, but they're not paying. They're not paying enough to keep you. I mean, you look at majority of the jobs in each county, then look at what the medium income is for that whole state. Then you compare that to the cost of living in that state. It's like you're struggling. You're going to always continue to struggle because it doesn't balance out. And it's not even balanced. It's below what the need is to live in your own state. And that's just about every state in the country. So when you come down to student loans, if you had took this debt away when people were doing well, making money, like during the Obama administration, people were making money, you could have then reduced some debt to allow people to add more to their nest egg, more to their savings, to their investments when things were going good, in my opinion. But let's go ahead. I was going to change the transition to the next topic. But what were you saying?
My last point is this. We also had a conversation about, so people below 125 are getting forgiveness. People over 125 per year are not getting the forgiveness, which really does suck, because when you look at people who are making $125,000 a year that live in New York, or that live in Los Angeles, or that live in Denver, Colorado, or that live in Seattle, Washington, you're looking at a group of people who still cannot afford to pay off their student loan debt, because these are to live in. These cities are so outrageously expensive that you will pay $400,000 for an 800 square foot house. Okay, this isn't like Seattle, Washington. Like, you literally are paying so much money just for a place to live. Rent is ridiculous. You have the cost of living is so high in these cities that if you make over $125,000, it is the same as making $50,000, $40,000 somewhere in the Midwest. It's insane, right? You're probably thinking like, well, why don't you just move? Because the jobs that they have are there in those high, ridiculously. But it's a trap. It's a trap because these kids get out of school and they move to these places and they don't realize the cost of living is going to be so expensive that they won't be able to pay their student loans back. And you're living like someone who's making $40,000 a year and paying $1,200 rent per month. It's a lot. So, I just want to just throw that out there. Like that's another aspect of it. A lot of people are going to benefit from this, but a lot of people who need to benefit from this but can't are screwed.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on.
Well, I want to move it a little bit to the teacher strike in Ohio. There's a video in the chat there for that. Let's go ahead and play that video, then we'll come in and talk about it.
Gotcha.
Lesson plans in Columbus, Ohio are on hold, with teachers holding the line for the third straight day.
We are going to stand up for our kids.
We'd rather be in the buildings with our students.
Some students even standing alongside their teachers.
I'm upset that I didn't get to go on my first day.
Instead, the school year began remotely for the district's 47,000 students taught by substitute teachers.
Hopefully we'll be able to go back to class soon, and I don't want to be behind
Among teachers' demands, smaller class sizes and building improvements.
Those concerns are currently still being negotiated. What's most important is that we get our teachers in the classroom.
This union representing more than 4,000 Columbus teachers and staff striking for the first time in roughly 50 years, a sign experts say of mounting frustration nationwide.
Educators in other cities where tensions remain high are closely monitoring Columbus, several of them even weighing strikes.
You are absolutely watching what's happening in Columbus.
I am, and I hope educators across the state of North Carolina are as well.
And it's not just teachers driving the charge. In Philadelphia public schools, janitors and transportation workers recently voted to strike. In St. Louis, driver shortages left 8 schools without bus service for the first couple weeks.
Back here in Columbus, negotiations resumed today, and tonight the superintendent tells us nothing has changed. Kids will learn remotely again tomorrow.
Thank you, NBC, for that. But now there has been an update, though, from what I see here. This is from Thursday. Now, I didn't get the date of that video, but the Columbus, Ohio Teachers Union and the Columbus Board of Education has reached a conceptual agreement ending a strike and allowing the students to return to the classroom next week. This is from CNN. It says the Columbus Education Association confirmed the agreement on Twitter, saying the comprehensive conceptual agreement was reached at 2:38 a.m. So they was working through the night trying to get this deal done. The Board of Education President Jennifer Adair said the district looks forward to welcoming students and teachers back on Monday. While the details cannot be yet disclosed, the contract recognizes the board's commitment to improving our student outcomes, the essential work of the Columbus Education Association members, and strengthening our learning environments. Now, I was looking for some of the issues. I know that one of the biggest issues were air conditioning. They said there were many schools that didn't have air conditioning. And this was a hot summer. These schools are, it's still kind of warm in this August and early September. So I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. They're also looking at teachers seeking an 8% pay raise, as well as commitments to improving heating and air conditioning and dilapidated buildings, smaller classroom sizes, and more. The district has offered 3% pay bumps and balked at including language on the school improvements in its contract with the union. So the district relied on students to leave virtual classes, substitutes rather, to leave virtual classes. There's about 4,500 teachers, librarians, and counselors, and other school workers were on strike. So I don't know if this is going to exactly continue or we're just end up making another holdout with the teachers later. If they're not getting the raise, they're at least some raise they're expecting. I mean, 8% versus 3% that's a 5% difference. So is that going to make it work? And also, if you're balking on the school improvements, are you going to get the improvements for the school? What would stop a community from improving their schools? Like from a condition standpoint.
Like this is Columbus. Columbus is a big city. This is not, you know what I'm saying? Like they have the money to do it, but you have to ask, how is it that these schools are so, how do you not have air conditioning in schools? You know what I mean? I always say this, teachers get such the short end of the stick, even though they do the most. Like, I feel like teachers should get paid as much as doctors get paid, as much as lawyers get paid, as much as the highest paid professions in the country get paid, because they're the ones that get them to these points. Like your doctor wouldn't be a doctor if he didn't go to kindergarten through K through 8 and didn't graduate high school.
Right.
So I don't understand.
Well, I gotta say, I went to my elementary was in a decent school district. We didn't have air conditioning.
That's insane to me. That's crazy to me. And then you have 40 kids in a class. You're like 30 to 40 kids in a class to one teacher. I never understood that concept. Like, how do you expect one teacher to educate 30, 40 kids? These are kids, okay?
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I remember those days, in school, we had to open the windows of the school because it was hot. Wow. And things have changed now to where schools just weren't built with air conditioning. Now you have schools with air conditioning.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I
mean, climate change, this is one of the hottest summers I've ever seen. So times are changing. They need to get on top of that. It's 2022. It ain't no reason.
Yeah, so I hope that the school district get their issues together and
Mhm.
do their work and making these teachers feel respected. Not only that, respect these students who need these teachers. So James Berry is saying, I do agree educators should get paid. However, in most school systems, teacher salaries are 80% of the educational budget.
Hmm.
Yeah, but know what goes to that also is how we vote also. That still goes back to voting.
Yeah.
That goes back to filling out your census because communities, states get their money from, according to their population. So if you have a segment of the population that is not filling out the census, you're not going to get those dollars that's going to help that school district. Help all that the rebuilding of the schools, making the schools adequate to where you have comfortable environments so students can learn. Then we go to Oklahoma, where Summer, I think her name was Bosnier. She her situation a little different now. We all know what is going like the banning of books in schools now.
The crazy, idiotic plan to whitewash history. Yes, yes, yes. Once again.
Well, this is more than just with history. I think it's a little bit of everything from sexual identity to all these things. So they want to ban these books. So what she did was, since they were banned, she posted a QR code to allow her students access to be able to find these books. So there's a video for that. If you want to go ahead and play that for me.
Mm-hmm. I was reading the article.
Oh, okay.
It's on here?
Should be a video in there, isn't it? No, there wasn't a video. I thought it was a video.
But I have the article.
Okay, go ahead and read the article.
Okay, so an Oklahoma English teacher says she resigned after being reprimanded by her high school for providing students with a QR code to access banned books following the adoption of state legislation that censors school reading material. Crazy. Summer Boismere, it looks like, told HuffPost that she resigned effective immediately Wednesday from Norman High School, located in south of Oklahoma City, and would do what I did again in a heartbeat. Her quote. Because of restrictions that were placed on classrooms by House Bill 1775. I'm not sure exactly what it says, so let's go to do that. We know that it's banning books. I think you're right. Like it's banning books that are showing like homosexuality and books that talk about anything having to do with 1619. I'm sure. But I'm about to go read it right now. House Bill, let's see. No enrolled students of an institution of higher education within the Oklahoma State City system of higher education shall be required to engage in any form of mandatory gender or sexual diversity training or counseling, provided voluntary counseling shall not be prohibited. Any orientation or requirement that presents any form of race or sex stereotyping or a bias on the basis of race or sex shall be prohibited. So basically, teaching students about race or sex, you can't demand your student, you can't require your students to take a class like that or read books like that.
Right.
Let's see what else. What's another big part of this?
So, what makes so the school doesn't have to teach on these things, but the student should have access to material if they want it, correct? They should.
So she didn't do anything wrong. She didn't violate the law.
She resigned because of the fact that she got tired of being controlled in that way, is what I'm assuming. In that manner, to where they're telling you what you can't. Because you can't. I saw an interview with her this week. She was kind of confused. When she was talking, it was kind of confusing trying to keep up with what she was saying. And I understand her point of view on it, which I totally agree with, of wanting to give students access to resource materials. But I think that the problem is that when you start banning and pulling books out of schools, where's your limitation? Where does it stop? every time that politically that you, because politics shouldn't be in the classroom to this extent.
But I mean, look at the law. I mean, look at it. Look at the bill. It says okay, so no teacher, administrator, or other employee of a school district, charter school or virtual charter school shall require or make part of a course the following concepts. One race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. That wipes out the entire lesson of slavery. That wipes out the entire lesson.
Right, it does.
I mean, that wipes out the entire women's suffrage movement. Like, it wipes out the entire, first half of history.
So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So where does the limitation stop? It's going to always be something that you want to ban. It's going to always be something.
This is actually insane, because if by this law, that means you cannot require your students to learn about any type of discrimination based on gender. Like, come on. Yeah. That literally takes out all of the history that I learned in school.
Yeah.
All of the, I mean, even the 1 week, 5-day span, actually a 5-day school week of Black history that we get in February. You know what I'm saying? We don't learn about, you can't teach your kids about discrimination. You can't, what is history class? There's no history class. What are you learning about?
What war can you talk about?
What war can you talk about? Exactly. Literally, what war can you talk about? Because every war had discrimination, slaves.
Not every war had slaves.
Yes, pretty much did. I mean, you can't even, if you really want to talk about, you can't even talk about how America even came to fruition without talking about Native Americans having their land snatched from them.
Yeah.
So basically, you just can't have history class in school, is what they're saying.
And that's what they want. It was one person who said, I can't remember the politician's name, said they don't think science and history should be taught prior to the 5th grade.
That's wild.
That's
so we're
stupid,
raising idiots. They want us to raise. This the worst part about America. As much as I love my country, for this land is my land. Okay. That's the dumbest part of America. It's infuriating to me that you would want, I mean, at the very least, let's just think about how our kids will match up to international students.
Yeah.
Do you really want your child to be an idiot? Do you really want your child to not even be able to participate in international events, academic events? You don't want them to have an expansive intellect. You don't want them to be smart enough to understand history.
Right.
You want another student from a different country to know more about your history than your child does?
That's exactly what's happening. That's what I was going to say next. That's exactly where it's going. They're going to get into a point that where someone else from another country is going to tell you about your history, and you're going to deny it, justify your stance on it because you didn't learn it, and you're going to be basically brainwashed into thinking something totally different.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Why would ignorance be acceptable? Leanne, thank you. I understand America is embarrassed of its history of racial discrimination against sexism, all of that. I mean, I'm gonna say sexism. Okay. I mean, I understand it's an embarrassing part of history, and most of our history is that, right? We're just now coming into a place where people are being accepted for who they are. People aren't really getting a whole lot of backlash for living the life they want to live. We're just entering that part of our history. But I mean, you have to accept the whole of your history. You have to accept all of American history. You can't have school without teaching that lesson. You can't, because I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at it, it's happening. We are becoming a dumb society.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to be dumb. The bar is really low.
And that goes back again. I've always bring up voting. If you have uneducated students, they're going to end up growing up to be uneducated voters.
Yeah.
That's why you have a Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Math isn't everything. I'm gonna say Marjorie. Every time I hear Marjorie Taylor Greene open her mouth, I just am just like it. Just I just gag because I'm just this woman is insane. She's insane. Yeah. I mean, just even the clip we watched today. How can you talk about it's just not fair? Why are we paying for some kid that wanted to go to an Ivy League school and you had almost $200,000 of debt relieved by the same government that you're complaining about?
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor, I want my money back. Give my money back. You know what I'm saying?
You think about it with her, using her as an example. What concerns me more about what she says is the constituents who vote for her. Those are the people that we work with every day, that we live next to every day, that we shop with every day, that we spend money with hand in hand within communities every day, you know? And those are the people that affect your life personally because they're around you. And so, and I'm not saying personally her, but people like her who you live around every day, you work with, you go to school with. Those are the ones to me that I'm more concerned about. You know, because they're the ones that keep putting these type of people in office. So, with that being said, we were still on the issue of education and learning and teaching. What's up with this bullied kid pulling out a gun?
Yeah, you tell me about that. That's wild. Is
wild.
that a video for it or no?
Yeah, there's a video there for it.
Well, tonight we're seeing the scary moments when a young girl pulled out a gun after a fight on a school bus. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Sharice Gibson.
And I'm Devin Bartolotta. The moments were captured on video, and tonight police say a 12-year-old and her mother have been arrested. Eleanor Tabone has the story.
It started as a fight between two girls on the school bus after school on Friday. Then things got heated. At some point, one of the girls gets off the bus at a bus stop, returning, pounding on the bus door to get inside, walking away with what appears to be a gun in her hand after the driver refused to open the door for her.
I just can't picture myself sitting there with somebody approaching a bus with a gun. You should have pulled off to the bus driver. That was so irresponsible.
Crescent City Schools, the charter school operator that runs Achille, released a written statement saying Crescent City Schools and Achille Academy are horrified by this brazen act of violence that happened off school campus. The student is not at school and we are working with NOLA Public Schools regarding disciplinary action. Eyewitness News spoke with a mother of two students who ride the same bus.
When your children ride that bus, the shoulda, woulda, coulda run through your head. What if you got on the bus? You would have shot those children?
Eleanor Tabone, Eyewitness News.
Police arrested the 12-year-old that same day and charged her with aggravated assault with a firearm. The child's mother was also arrested and charged with principal to aggravated assault and for contributing to the delinquency of a juvenile. Police have not exactly said what led to that charge. The children's name have not been released given the age of the girl involved.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Check out, there's a picture here I have of an adult with that student. It just baffled my mind that adult was right there. There's a picture of an adult with that student. And look what this adult's wearing.
Lord.
I'm like, really? In the street? Really? Really? Like, what is the influences with this child? Now, they did say the child was being bullied from the article I read. Now, that goes to another issue where you get bullied over a period of time, you take drastic measures to stop the bullying. What I feel bad about is that
Say clarify that.
Like this girl just did. If she's being bullied, she ended up getting a gun. You see this, you've seen this happen before. You've seen this and you've seen this before where a kid grabs a gun and shoots another kid because he's been bullied in school. We need to handle the bullying situation. This isn't the first time these girls probably fought. This isn't the first time that they picked with one was picking on the other, however the case may go. But we have to get a handle in our country, in our schools, in our households. You know if your kid's a bully or not. Don't act like you don't know. So let's go ahead and we got to correct that issue first. When we correct that issue, it will lessen the amount of time that a kid will go out and try to find something like a gun to resolve the issue.
Yeah, that's
kids
crazy.
have committed suicide because of being bullied. Kids have shot others because of being bullied.
Yeah.
That's where the issue starts. But then when we have parents condoning the action, if that girl got out of that bus and got the gun from the adult, that's worse. That's worse than a kid finding the gun on its own and doing this type of having this kind of behavior.
Right, because you're an adult. What are you doing?
Yeah. So what's your thoughts?
I think that's crazy. I mean, I don't really know. I think it's the worst thing for a parent to put their child in a position to ruin their lives. I think as parents, we are our first child. We're our child's first protectors. We are our the guardians of our children. We're supposed to make sure they're safe, and we're supposed to safeguard their future and everything. So for you to provide your child with a deadly weapon as a means to defending herself or whatever the case is, why would you put your child in a position to now have something on her record, to now be to go to jail? And your child is Black. Like, this is a Black child. There's no shortcuts for her. There's no, you know what I mean?
I found another video, Bree.
I
found another video from outside. I don't know exactly what all it shows yet, but I'm about to show this video.
Okay.
I found it from another site. I'm going to share it from my screen. Yeah, I'm like, it's always, and then we'll discuss more about gun safety and, just this whole gun reform thing that they're trying to do. This is nothing but another way to push toward that. But here's this video.
Oh, no! No!
Underwear.
That should just go away! Oh, get the fuck out of my head, Yo, man!
Well, tonight we're seeing the scary moments when a young girl pulled out a gun after a fight on a school bus.
So we had already seen that part of the review, but that shows you prior to what the cameras were showing of them, her banging on the school bus. Now, that adult there needs to be put in jail.
Under the jail.
No, there's nothing acceptable about that whatsoever.
Putting the gun, gave the gun to the child.
And then you look at the fear on the kids' faces.
Yeah.
That's trauma.
If I'm the parent of one of those kids, my child is getting pulled out of the school that day.
Yeah.
My child.
Not just the school. That I'm at the next city council meeting trying to get things happening. What's going to happen in my community? That's totally unacceptable. And we need to do better as a community protecting our kids.
But you'll be surprised though.
What would have happened if that girl started shooting shots off and hurt one of those students on that bus? We're not thinking about the ramifications of what can happen along the way when these things instantly come about.
Yeah, you'll be surprised at how many parents actually condone their kids taking guns to school. When you look, I don't know.
Is your student? If the student, I don't think it's cool to take it to school. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with your kids being trained in firearms. There's a difference there.
And I'm specifically talking like in the hood. Like this looks like it's in the hood somewhere. I was just watching this video. This is off topic, but I was just watching this video about Lil Wayne. And he was saying that one day, he was the reporter asked the interviewer asked him, like, do you regret, dropping out of school? And he said no. His mom wanted him to drop out of school because one day he was getting ready for school and he was putting the gun in his backpack. And she said, "You're gonna take the gun to school?" And he's like, "You don't want me to take it to school?" And she was like, "No, you're right. I want you to take it to school." And he's getting ready to walk out the door, and she says, "No, stop. You're not going back to school." And he got his GED and graduated that way. And I think that you just would be surprised at how many parents in those neighborhoods do condone their child taking the gun to school for their own safety because of situations like this. I mean, I think it's terrible. I think it's wrong. I think the mom should be under the jail, because no way that you're going to come to a school bus with your child in your underwear. And that's trauma in itself. Like, you know, now you got kids getting scared because your daughter has a gun and she's trying to shoot somebody on the bus. Like, you know what I'm saying? You, as parents, I mean, it's just, honestly, when you're in a jam, I don't know. Obviously, she didn't just become that way overnight. She probably grew up in an environment like that. So, I don't know. I think it's really sad. I do think the mom needs to be in jail, like, for certain.
And speaking about Lil Wayne was a straight A student at that. That makes it really bad that he had to drop out of school and he's a straight A student. But yeah, like when I first saw this video, the
interviewer said you were an honor student. He said nothing less. Yeah. Honor student.
Yeah. So when I saw this video, the first question I had was, where did the kid get the gun? Like, I'm thinking that the kid got scared, was, used to be fighting, being bullied, and decided to take the gun from their parents' house, snuck it out the house. But it doesn't look like this parent condoned it.
I must say, it looked like the mom was in favor of it. It looked like she was ready to get rowdy too. Like, that's what that looked like on that video. That video looked like the mom was cool with her daughter waving that gun around them kids on that bus.
Yeah. Holding it all improper, all up in the air. So you said the next topic, you want to go into the next topic of the Little League with the cotton.
Mm-hmm. No.
Just have that conversation right quick. I want to briefly get in that conversation and then.
So angry.
Go ahead and show the video first.
It's just Little Leaguers being Little Leaguers right there. Hey, next week's Sunday night baseball matchup should be a good one. Atlanta and St. Louis. Cardinals leading the Central. They finish up that 3-game series at Busch, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, ESPN, Deportes, and Radio. And we'll start with 6 Eastern baseball tonight's Sunday night countdown. Why not, right? When in Rome. Are they taking the stuffing out of a stuffed animal? Is that how that's? That's just Little Leaguers being Little Leaguers right there. Hey, next week's Sunday night baseball match.
Little Leaguers being Little Leaguers.
No?
Huh?
Did you want me to keep going with that video, or is
that? No. That's enough. Little Leaguers being Little Leaguers.
I'm proud of myself because the first time I saw this, I rolled my eyes. Almost thought my eyes wasn't going to come back down. I rolled my eyes so hard. Oh.
Now, okay. So you're rolling your eyes thinking like, wow, how did a parent allow this to happen?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A lot of people were saying like, we want to blame all the parents. And I know we were having that conversation. I'm like, I blame his parents. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So people were saying blame ESPN for showing the footage. Now I had a debate with a person yesterday, and the person was telling me that, that Twitter went crazy over this. It was an overreaction. My explanation to that person was that it's not about being overreaction, because the students, those kids were probably, there was no ill will is what they were saying with these kids doing that. That I can believe. It wasn't racially charged, in my opinion, with these kids. They were just doing something. But what these kids were doing was out of ignorance. So I asked the question. I said, it's no ill will, yes. But if we taught our kids true history about if you look at the impact of the cotton industry in our country and the negative impact it had on a group of people, millions of Black Americans who could not profit from that, who were killed during that era, who who had to, after their freedom, go back to that same environment because they couldn't find a job, had to stay on that same land and those same shacks because they didn't have no place to go. There would be a sensitivity to that. So I use the examples. What if you had Vietnamese kids playing and imitating the Vietnam War, and they had white kids as POWs? That would be kind of insensitive. It was like, wow, or what if you had a Middle Eastern person and they're fighting, they're playing like they're airplanes, and they're acting like they're in the airplane, and he's going to commit suicide by driving into a building. That's very insensitive to those who had to endure 9/11. Or what about some German kids playing with some Jewish kids, and the German kids are imitating Hitler? That's very insensitive to that Jewish community. So, and the second part of this whole thing with this video is that, to be honest with you, Black people have an issue with putting your hands in their hair. Number one, man or woman, they have an issue. So going back to the beginning of this video again, students should have a sense of, wow, that's not cool, or we shouldn't play this way. And then the adults that was on the staff thought it was funny too because they didn't step in to stop this. Of course, it was innocent behavior, but this innocent behavior can be turned into a teachable moment. We should never stop having teachable moments in our country. No matter what the issue is, if you see it, and you know this, as me being your dad, there's times in our time of growing up, I always try to give a teachable moment about something we saw that was wrong, whether it was something you did or someone did to you. It was a teachable moment. And I think that's where not only the baseball team failed on it, not only the ESPN fell on it, the parents failed on that moment to make it teachable. Because again, we don't make jokes about Hitler with kids. We don't even go in there. We don't do that. We don't make jokes about 9/11. Everybody and their mama get offended about 9/11 when you want to make jokes about 9/11. And we can't make jokes about anybody who had to deal with something that was suffering. And before I'm going to have you give a comment, but I'm going to give this other example of what these type of situations bring up. Me and my wife was driving to the beach, going to South Padre Island, which is at the bottom of Texas, right in the Mexico border. So we're going through near Corpus Christi, Texas. And we was coming across all these cotton fields. Cotton grows in Texas. Yes, it does. But our mutual reaction was the same. We didn't have to say it. We thought it, and then it just came out of our mouth. First thought we had was, we didn't say, what we didn't say first was, wow, look at all that cotton. That is so beautiful. The thought we had was, wow, slaves could have been picking on the same land at one time. My grandmother is from Houston, Texas, which is not too far from Corpus Christi area. Her family was from here, and so on, her ancestors. So it's possible that my ancestors picked off of these same cotton fields I just drove by in 2021, last year. Possible, but that's the thoughts I had. It wasn't nothing joyful about that thought. It was a thought of, wow. It was one of those moments that, let me do some more research on my family history and this part of Texas. For all we know, people could have been sold up and down that Gulf Coast to pick cotton. Those are the thoughts I had. That's the trauma that slavery still has with us today. That I can see something in 2021 or 22 to make me think about what it could have been like in that time frame. And that's why I thought this could have been a teachable moment for those students. Not that they were putting cotton in somebody's hair, but what's the history of cotton in our country and how did it impact people's lives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and really this, I don't know if you ever saw did you see the documentary, This Is Who We Are, America, This Is Who We Are on Netflix? Watch that video. He talks about cotton. He said cotton was like 200 and something billion pounds of cotton. And you know how light cotton is, right? Can you imagine 204 or 200 and something billion pounds of cotton? That's
Is
a lot
that,
of cotton.
is that over the time span of slavery, or what do you mean?
During the time of cotton picking time, the amount of cotton that was picked, and then you look at all the companies that to this day they have family wealth from the cotton industry. And there's not a black person on the planet that's grew from wealth from the cotton industry.
Yeah.
So your comments. I'm sorry I took so long on that, but that bothered me. It did bother me.
You basically hit the nail on the head. Everything you're saying is driving the point home. The only thing I would add is that I said this before, I'll say it again. I definitely blame the parents. When you take your kids, when you raise your kids in a suburban neighborhood, in a suburb, or a predominantly white neighborhood, right? In an area with a great school system, and I'm not saying that this is the case, I'm just putting this out there.
Yeah.
It is still your responsibility as a black parent, whether you're a black parent, like with you're a 2 black parent household, whether you're an interracial, parent household with 1 black parent, whatever the case is, it is your job to prepare your children for the world that they face, because no matter how much whitewashing this country does, the labels that are out there are still going to be placed on your child no matter where he grew up or where she grew up. Okay, you can have your child in the whitest neighborhood with the best schools and the best whatever, and everybody driving whatever, and you know what I'm saying, and you live in the biggest house on the hill. Your black child is, when he walks out the house and he goes out into the world, he's still a black child. He's still a black person. So when you have situations like this, you can tell that this kid hadn't been educated on anything about this.
Yeah.
You can tell that he thought it was just fine. And when the parents made it clear that there was no ill will and it wasn't a big issue, I don't know these parents, I haven't researched them, but I read the article. It made it, for me, it looks like these parents did not do their job as far as teaching their child about the history of slavery, the history of Black people in this country, because there's no way, and even if it ain't cotton, I don't care what it is, it's no way that my child is sitting there and people are putting stuff in her hair.
Right.
Any type of anything in her hair, let alone cotton of all things. For me, I would have took major issue with that, and my Black A would have been all over the news talking about this, as in, I can't believe they put my child on national television getting cotton put in his hair. He's never going to live that down. I mean, he's going to catch it from, and this is social media, he's going to catch it everywhere he go. He's going to hear from other Black people, how you let them put cotton in your hair, fool? What is wrong with you? That's never going to die out. His parents are never going to hear the end of it. And that's just one of the things that we got to face. I mean, it's very easy to raise your child in a suburb or in a predominantly white neighborhood and never teach them about anything about their history. That is a mistake. As a parent, that is your responsibility, because your child, like I said, can go out into that world and still going to be a Black child. You can either arm them with education, you can either arm them with knowledge, or you can send them out there just vulnerable as heck.
Yeah. I agree. Totally agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And that's where the teachable moments are. And we have to take advantage of those moments. And so that's what I'm looking, I want to see what comes out of this later, or they might just sweep it under the rug like everything else. So to recap everything, man, we talked about everything. What's that?
I don't think anything's going to come of it. I just think he's going to be getting clowned for the rest of his life, and so is his parents. I feel bad for the kid, but I'm just saying.
Man, I can't wait to hear the next comedian talk about this one. That's going to be crazy.
Teammates put cotton in his hair. His parents,
right.
Like his parents,
yeah.
They deserve every single joke. They deserve every single backlash them parents do. I'm sorry, but I can't.
Let's see if they show up to next year's cookout.
Uninvited.
But Yeah, just recapping everything that we went over today, which was pretty good. We had a pretty good show today, Bree. I really appreciate you. Darren's on the road. Want to keep prayers up for him as he's traveling. We talked about the classified documents in the White House that Trump snuck out, tried to keep, and they want them back. So we went from there to the PPP loans and student loans. You know, Biden made it a great historical move by forgiving these loans. I wish the threshold was a little higher where more people can get loans forgiven. Like you said, that 125 is kind of low versus where some people may live according to their economy.
I think it should be how much. Never mind. Not how much debt you have, but it should be your ratio to your living expense versus your salary. I know that would take a lot more calculation. It would take a lot more effort to do, but I don't think they should have capped it at 125. It should be, how are you surviving right now? Like, what is your income to debt ratio, and how is the cost of living? Is your salary matching up to the cost of living?
That I agree with. You can't go by debt. So some people are in more debt than others because of their irresponsibility. So if you look at your cost of living in your community versus your income, that I agree with, because this shows that you're not even with your college degree or whatever schooling you've had, you're not meeting the income requirement to even live in your community. You're struggling. So I agree with that. We have the teachers on strike in Ohio because they want better working conditions and they are looking to get a raise. The Oklahoma teacher, Summer Bosimer, I can't pronounce the last name. Please forgive me for screwing that one up. But she wants to have a more diverse teaching environment, at least allow the kids the resources to research what they want. And she resigned because the books that were banned, and she sent a QR code out to the students, allowing them access to the books that were banned from her school. Uvalde police chief, we didn't get on the topic of him today, being fired. This has been something that's been brewing for a while, but I didn't really say too much about that yet. I wanted to see what was going to develop from that. These kids are back in school this week. They went back this week, I think, or they go back next week. I think it's next week. And they're preparing to go back.
Shut down. They were going to shut down the school.
No, they were going back next week is what I heard.
Oh, I saw a report a few months ago saying that school's going to be shut down.
I didn't hear that. I mean, I could be wrong, but then I want to see how this is going to develop, because the whole police department, the whole state of Texas failed in that regard.
I think they also.
You had a parent run in to try to save kids. You know what I'm saying? A parent. So then we have we're talking about guns. We have a bullied kid in Louisiana that pulled a gun out and looked like it was condoned by a parent. There's going to be charges for that parent. But more than anything, how are we going to handle the behavior of our kids when it comes to bullying and also responsive gun ownership? I don't know where that kid got that gun from. It never did say whose gun it was. I'm still looking to hear the answers on that. And lastly, let's teach our kids about history, the real history, so we won't have kids sitting in a baseball bullpen putting cotton in another kid's head. So with that being said, anything on the bottom line for you, Bria?
Well, I do want to comment on the. So I saw in June they said that the teachers were returning, the staff wasn't returning to the Robb Elementary School. I'm not sure how they got back to opening the school, but I think all of the officers involved should be fired. And my first one, I think the police chief and all of those officers that were there on site should be fired.
I agree.
I don't care about following orders. If you are close enough to stand outside the classroom with a gun and listen to students being shot dead, your butt needs to be fired. You need to be fired. Yeah. There's no other, I don't think there's any other course of action that needs to be had. I imagine a lot of them are having a lot of trouble sleeping at night. I imagine a lot of them are suffering from PTSD. That's a very sad thing. But we also have parents who lost their children. And those officers need to be fired. They should not be at work. They should not be holding a gun. They should not have a badge. They need to be working somewhere else, like Walmart or Whole Foods or somewhere else where they can stand by and watch stuff happen and let officers do the jobs. And I know that's a hard thing to say, but at the end of the day, you had officers literally listening to children lose their lives on the other side of a door.
Yeah, some officers looking on their cell phone and stuff. You know.
Crazy. So I was So, but my bottom line is not that. My bottom line is simply this: if you have student loan debt and you are looking to have that debt forgiven and you make less than $125,000, please look per year. Please look into this student loan debt forgiveness program that Biden just rolled out. Is very important that we take advantage of this opportunity, because not a lot of times that we get opportunities like this. So take advantage of it. Do what you got to do. Don't take the foot off the gas. Still pay the rest of your student loan debts off. All that. It's going to be better for you. That's great. Love your neighbor. I just had COVID. You guys, wear your masks, because the pandemic is not over. That's a lot. That's it. That's all I got.
And I'm glad you're feeling better after COVID, your whole household. I'm really happy to hear that. Really.
That was absolutely.
And I'll be there to visit you next week. Can't wait.
Sanitized. The house will be sanitized. Kansas City is really low on cases, so we haven't been sick the entire pandemic. We didn't get sick till we went to Miami. That COVID was like, I would never do that again. I would hope to never do that.
Yeah. So my bottom line is this. I look at the different topics we talked about today, from the White House situation all the way down to the Little League Cotton situation. We could all do better, and we can only do better when those around us are educated to help us do better. Each one of these situations, there was a group of people that could have prevented each one of these things from happening. People could have prevented Trump from taking documents that they knew were wrong. These people who took these PPP loans and had them forgiven, there could have been a conversation about that prior to even giving these people the PPP loans, especially celebrities and these billionaire companies. Where was that conversation? Teacher strike. If you know the schools are not adequate for teaching, and you know these teachers aren't making the money, that comes down to, from a political standpoint, making sure your state is in the best position to succeed. There's a conversation to prevent these things from happening. We already just talked about Uvalde's police. We already talked about that. That could have been a preventable situation. Those doors should have been locked so that kid couldn't even get in. Doors should be locked from the outside. You can get out from the inside, but it should be locked from the outside. Preventable situation. The kid pulls a gun out outside the school bus. Preventable situation. Preventable situation. Did this kid ever talk about being bullied? Did anybody know this kid was being bullied? Did anybody know this kid was at a breaking point? Who left the gun accessible to a kid? All these situations have been preventable. World Series in the Cotton, same thing, preventable situation. Respect the person enough. I mean, there's foolery going on, yes. People can have fun and you're joking around, yes. But certain things are off grounds to be joked with, especially out of ignorance. And so that's my bottom line. Take every moment to have a teachable moment to help someone else. And, that's just my take on it. And with that, I guess we'll catch you all next week then, right?
Yes. Right here on Saturday mornings. Okay, the Bottom Line Show. Okay, every time. Every time. All right, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.